because you want to get that glucose in there. You don't want to be metabolizing. The only thing about complex carbohydrates that makes them different, on the glucose, when they do the glucose ratings, brown rice and white rice have the same amount of glucose. Excuse me. They affect the blood sugar in exactly the same way. It's just brown rice, you have to process the husk off when you digest it, so it gets into the bloodstream slower. So you don't get that spike. But other than that, they're exactly the same. And it has the fiber, which we need. It has that non-soluble fiber, which we need.
Is there any difference in the temperature in which the room you work out in? Does that have any correlation at all to effectiveness?
It can. I think there's a debate about that. Obviously, they're saying that increased temperatures can increase muscle flexibility. That's why they do that yoga. Yeah, and they increase temperatures. But that's really hot. It's designed that you get muscle flow and health flexibility. So they're saying maybe they're theorizing it may help with injury prevention. But you'll see the exact same argument for cold. They got rid of ice baths for athletes. Have you heard about this thing they have now? I can't remember what it's called. It's brand new. They're marketing it to athletic teams. It's a chamber you get in, so your head sticks out, and they blow cold air on you to almost absolute zero.
What?
Well, I mean,
Absolutely.
Absolute zero.
Sounds like they're worth it now.
They induce hypothermia in small doses. They give you hypothermia. Yeah, they induce hypothermia. They actually try and make the blood pool to the center of the body, so that when you get out, you've got all this oxygen-rich blood going to the muscles, and it helps aid recovery too. So you see the argument both ways. So I don't know.
Well, I just heard that since we measure food energy as calorie, which is a measure of heat,
Right.
and so I've heard that you want to diet, live in a 40-degree room, you're going to burn more calories.
Well, the same goes true for if you live in a 90-degree room. You need calories to cool off too.
Yeah.
So you can go, again, it can go either way. But back to your pre-workout meal. So yeah, simple carbohydrate before you go and exercise. Half hour before you work out. No, not any closer than that. Give yourself time to digest that meal. It doesn't need to be really heavy in calories. Just something a little bit. Don't go work out on an empty stomach. That used to be the theory, is go out on an empty stomach. Don't do that.
So you're talking like a Coke.
Not a Coke. That's going to burn up real quick. But
Maybe a Wonder Bread jelly sandwich?
yeah, maybe so, or a fruit.
Want to avoid anything with
Just one. An apple. You could have a couple apples, an apple and an orange, or a banana, or something like that. It's got a little fiber in it. Again, that's going to help slow down how quickly it enters your bloodstream, so you don't burn out. But the sugars in fruit, or like I mentioned before, they're almost glucose.
Not vegetable.
You want to.
No, you can do a vegetable too. Certain
You want to
vegetables are like
avoid
that
things
too.
like peanut butter and that kind of stuff.
Before you work out, yeah.
Okay.
Anything that's going to have a large amount of fat in it, because it's going to slow down your digestion.
Okay.
It's going to prevent the nutrients that you're going to get from your carbohydrate or your protein. It's not going to enter your bloodstream fast enough.
So, I'm getting a little confused as to what we're considering a workout. When we're talking about the aerobic base building, we don't want a lot of glucose being used in our bloodstream or glycogen being used in our muscles. Instead, we want to be burning fats. Should we have a different type of diet if we're going to move into one of those exercises, or is it just the intensity of the exercise is going to determine what systems you use?
You will burn through glucose usually within the first 10 to 20 minutes, regardless of what activity you're doing. Once you go from zero to activity, the body responds by burning glucose. Then after maybe 10-15 minutes, and when we did the VO2 maxes, we would see it. Glucose level would drop off, and either they would respond by increased lipid use, or they wouldn't. So for the first 10-15 minutes of your exercise, no matter what you're doing, you're going to be all carbohydrates. The idea is that's why duration counts, and burning on the aerobic base, on getting extra oxygen by forcing your body to burn fat. That's why duration counts. You want to go longer to force yourself into that state where your body has to go. We're going to have to go into this fat now to get. We've got time to do it. We need to do it. Let's do it. The body will go to those fat reserves. So you still want to have a simple carbohydrate before you go work out. That'll help you get through that 10-15 minute phase. Make sure you got enough energy so you don't have the blood glucose drop in that first, you could have a blood glucose drop in that first 10 minutes. Take your Coke, will go right through you. 5 minutes in, you're like, you'll get that hypoglycemic reaction. You're not going to be able to continue exercising. So, yeah. You gotta go more than 10 minutes.
And then if that aerobic system really only kicks in after 15 or 20 minutes of exertion, it strikes me that with training maybe you can make that happen a little bit sooner, but it's not the kind of thing where you're going to start a fight, 3 minutes in you have a flurry, you have a 30-second break, and your body's not burning carbohydrates anymore. It seems to be more like you're in round 7, you're resting for round 8, that's when that kind of system will engage. Is that right?
It may not engage at all during fighting. The idea, though, is what's happening. The reason you train that aerobic base is because during aerobic base training, your body learns to get, it increases its efficiency with oxygen. It gets more oxygen into the bloodstream with every breath. So even if you're not in an aerobic state, even if you are fighting, you've increased the chemical composition, the oxygen in your blood. Your blood is oxygen rich. So that when you do stop and back off, and that heart can go from that intense, near anaerobic state and calm down. You're flooding
replenish glycogen faster.
Yeah, it's just a mechanism for getting more oxygen into the blood. That's all it is. The body says, we got to burn fat, we need oxygen to do that, let's increase the amount of oxygen we get to the blood. So we're really kind of going for a side effect of the aerobic phase. We're not really going for the real effect, which is it makes people melt on that program, that they lose weight, they just go, when they do that combined with the diet.
Okay, so back to the pre-workout meal. We got a simple carb. What else?
Well, you could go with a protein, again, a low fat, lean protein, but really just a simple carbohydrate. It doesn't have to be much. Yeah, it doesn't have to be too much.
And post-workout.
You want a protein and water and another simple carbohydrate. Now you can have your Coke.
Where exactly does beer? That's not carbohydrate. It's the simplest carbohydrate.
Yeah, it's a very exactly. Hey, use already alcohol for energy for a while. You live on just alcohol for a year or so.
Earlier you said that you could do your base building at several intervals during the day. Do they have to be more than that 15 or 20 minutes to get beyond the initial use?
You got to at least get into that state. 10 minutes. The first 10 minutes you do it that day, you'll trigger it. You can go back an hour later. Your body will respond as if it'll still have happened. The body will be ready to go into that.
But what about the sugar burning process and the switch from the carbohydrate fuels?
We see people go back and forth all the time. It's really weird. We'll say, okay, the theory was you do 10 minutes of cardio, you just get through that sugar burning state, and then you stop. Oh, now we've lost it. They'll never go back. But they do. You do. When you go back to that next 10 minutes, you slide right into that aerobic state. We see it all the time.
You're talking about glycogen in the muscles and stuff, but you've never said anything about the liver. So, I mean, because that's where the glycogen is in. So
Right.
your body is constantly replenishing, using your stores from your liver
Yeah.
to go back into.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
So that's why that is. That's what that happens. You could actually.
You can, but it doesn't. When the body's under duress, it doesn't happen at a rate fast enough to respond to the body's energy needs. So if you increase the body's energy needs, the liver on its own is not going to
Well,
necessarily.
that's why you use it up in your muscles first, and then
Right.
hopefully you can get your liver can catch up. That's why when we see marathon people are literally just hit the wall and then they.
Oh, yeah.
Because their liver can't keep up and,
Yeah.
and their muscles are done.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
Were you going to say anything about the importance of stretching?
Yeah. I just got 5 minutes, so I'm going to hit on two things really quick. We'll talk about stretching, and then I'm going to talk about core strength too. So we'll talk about flexibility training. Flexibility training, quick tips. You do not warm up by stretching. Don't do that. If I go, I got to warm up before I fight, and you start doing this, if you stretch a cold muscle before a physical activity, you increase the injury rate by 30%. You are guaranteeing you're going to hurt something. It will eventually catch you. You've got to have the muscle warmed up. When we say you got to have a warm up, that means that you've had to have been at close to 50–55% of your maximum heart rate for a good 5 to 10 minutes. That's a warm up. That makes sure that there's blood flowing through the muscles are able to contract, increases that muscle flexibility before you stretch. Really, if you want to warm up for fighting, do slow work, fight a little bit. Take a jog around the parking lot.